Having a rolling chair on wooden floor is not a good combination. I need to get like a little rug or something. Welcome, my lovely people, to the top 10 most privileged people on Earth. I'm just going to be counting down the most privileged people out there. So without further ado, let's get started. Aha! Number 10, white men. This one's pretty obvious. I mean, we all know why white men are pretty privileged, so I'm not even going to bother explaining it. Let's just move on to the next entry in our list. Number 9, people who live close to cheaper gas stations. Imagine this. You have Alice and Bob, who both live equidistant from their place of work, but on opposite ends. So Bob lives near a gas station that charges $2.45 per gallon on average, whereas Alice lives by one that only charges $2.35 per gallon. Every single gallon of gas that these two buy, Alice is saving 10 cents on Bob for literally no reason other than she happens to reside in an area closer to that cheaper gas station. First of all, gas prices should be standardized at least within each state. I don't understand why you can have one gas station that's charging $2.20 and another one that's charging $2.22. It just doesn't make any sense. And it's not as if Bob can get to Alice's gas station because it's 30 minutes out of the way for him. So the amount of gas he would spend isn't enough to justify driving there to save some money on gas. So he's literally, no matter what, going to be paying more money for gas. The gas stations should all be the same price, and that Alice just uses her cheaper gas station and then, isn't aware of Bob's struggle. I mean, those 10 cents per gallon add up, and she's basically becoming richer simply by virtue of her location. That, my friends, is privilege. Number 8, bilinguals. Now you may be thinking to yourself, oh, but Jake, it's just communicating in another language. How is that a means of privilege? After all, you can learn a new language, right? No. The languages you learn as a kid are the only ones you will ever know to the highest possible degree to be able to think in that language and so forth. So if you're growing up only knowing English, then I'm sorry. No matter what Duolingo app you download, you're never, ever, ever going to know any other language as well as you know English. Your brain just isn't plastic enough anymore. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it works. Now, bilinguals have an advantage over monolinguists in that they're allowed to talk smack on people who are right in front of them under the assumption that that person won't know what they're saying. And I'm not just saying this hypothetically, I'm saying this actually happens. I've witnessed this. And what people have to understand is this isn't just like, oh, they can say a couple things. No. Talking smack on people builds camaraderie. So bilinguals have an easier time making friends this way. You may not realize this by just looking at me, but I have some Hispanic blood in me, and my mom is a fluent Spanish speaker. So I understand just a little bit of Spanish, not enough to speak it fluently, but to get by, I guess, if I woke up in the middle of Mexico with my kidneys missing, I could survive. But anyway, I heard two girls calling me a maricon flaco, and honestly, I've never been more offended in my life. But like, the thing is, I can't blame them, because if I knew a second language, I would be doing exactly the same thing with my friends who also speak that language. So bilinguals, you just have such a severe advantage over the rest of us, and that's a form of privilege if I have ever seen one. Number 7, 100 millionaires. Now right now a lot of the talk is about billionaires, Jeff Bezos. There's a Twitter account dedicated to basically talking shit on him because he doesn't solve world hunger, which he could do several times over according to some bogus stat that actually doesn't make sense. There's no way that's true. But He's constantly being grilled. There's a group of Twitter users who are constantly scouring Elon Musk's account for any sign that he unironically likes anime to oppress him as much as possible. Like, these billionaires are always getting grilled for the most asinine things. However, let's not ignore the 100 millionaires. A 100 millionaire is only 1 degree of magnitude below a billionaire. So they're almost as rich. And once you have that much money, like, how much of a difference does it make to be a billionaire instead of a 100 millionaire? Well, I'll tell you one difference. You don't exist in the public eye as much as a billionaire does. So essentially, 100 millionaires get all of the benefits of being a billionaire without the public scrutiny. And I think it's high time we took a look at our 100 millionaires on the Forbes 100 millionaires list and started treating them exactly the same way we do billionaires, by hating them for no real reason. We'll do this as a means to level out the privilege that 100 millionaires have over even billionaires. I would rather be a 100 millionaire than a billionaire, right? So that means 100 millionaires have some privilege inherent within them. Number 6, chess grandmasters. Now, I've been a little bit into the game of chess for about 2 years now, and it's fun, but when you're learning the game, you learn terms such as blunder, which is when you screw up really bad, and also hanging a piece, which happens when you lose a piece and then your opponent can just take it for free. But have you ever overheard commentators talking about grandmaster games? Because grandmasters sometimes hang pieces too. However, when a grandmaster does it, it's not called hanging a piece, it's called sacrificing a piece. It's not called a blunder, it's called a very sharp tactical play, or perhaps even a positional move. People will modify their language to talk about these grandmaster games simply on the benefit of the doubt. Like, basically, they're like, I don't know chess as well as this guy. That move looked ridiculous, but a grandmaster did it, so it probably has something else to it. And, you know, maybe they're right. But at the same time, if I pull off a good sacrifice, why is it still considered hanging a piece? Like, does the identity of the move really depend on who I am instead of the outcome of the game? It's ridiculous, honestly. If you're a grandmaster, like, people hold your opinion in such stupidly high regard. This whole entry just doesn't really make any sense. Number 5, people who are turning right. Now, I don't know if you've ever driven in the United States or not, but if you have, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you are not turning right, you are driving the wrong route, apparently, because, you know, when you turn right, you have the benefit of being able to go when there's a red light, unless there's a sign specifically forbidding it. You only have to look out for cars from one lane, and if you have a green light, you can also just go, and you don't even have to look at that one lane either. It's absolutely nuts. Now, if you're going straight, you have to wait for a green light, you know, that's kind of But if you're turning left, man, you just have it rough, simply on the basis of where you're going. Like, it's not like people who are turning left are more dangerous drivers. It's just that the way we've designed the highway system, you're being actively discriminated against if you're turning left. There's a sign I see sometimes on highways that just says, left turn, yield on green. The problem, of course, being that's the default behavior at a green light if you're turning left. You always have to yield to oncoming traffic if you're turning left. So the fact that tax money is being put into putting this sign up, it's like it's just there to rub it in left turners' faces that they're inferior to these right turners. And personally, I'm fed up with it. Right turners, you have to be aware of your right privilege. Number 4, girls on dating apps. Honestly, I saw a girl use Tinder once. She just swiped right a couple of times, and man, like 90% of them were matches. It was ridiculous. it was like she was playing the app on easy mode. And it's also not even like she was that attractive. I'm sorry, Andrea, but it's true. She is an average looking girl, and she still gets like a billion matches. Whereas a guy has to wait years and years and years unless he's like a supermodel, firefighter, super buff, pilot astrophysicist or something with like $1 billion in his bank account. If you're that kind of guy, maybe you get just as many matches as a girl. But every other guy on earth, if you just swipe right on every single girl, you'll get one, maybe two matches tops. Girls essentially get to choose whoever they want to swipe right on, and chances are it's going to be a match. So not only do they have an advantage there, but they also have an advantage in what happens after the match occurs, and this is where the real privilege begins. See, girls never have to initiate anything. It's always the guy who has to come up with some clever line or some sort of assertive statement to let it be known, yes, I like you, even though the implication of having the match is already that the guy likes you. Somehow we have to communicate it an extra time. Additionally, guys have to come up with the topic of conversation because girls just never do that. I don't know why. I mean, do the girls just not want to talk on Tinder? Like, they never come up with a topic to talk about. It's always, you say the line, and they're like, haha, if it was a funny one, or oh, interesting if it was a sexual come on. Like, they just respond only reactively, never proactively. The guys have to initiate everything, and they have to make the difficult decision of, okay, do I know this person well enough to make plans to meet up with them in real life? Bumble is a dating app that sells you on this false premise that the girl always has to message first. So you're thinking, oh, that's pretty sick. Now the girl will have to do something initiating. No. That's not how it works. See, the girl will only ever say hey or hi or hello or something, and then you still have to come up with the first actually interesting line of the conversation. Basically, girls get all the reward for none of the effort on dating apps, and that is why girls on dating apps are a privileged class of people. Number 3, children who are dying of terminal illnesses. First of all, children who are dying of terminal illnesses have a way of escaping life early. Like, that right there is big enough privilege in and of itself. Second of all, there's this foundation called the Make-A-Wish Foundation, where basically the child wishes for whatever they want, and then the foundation makes it come true. For example, there's this kid who wished he was Batman for a day, and then they set up this whole entire, thing where people were acting like criminals, and they had a decorated bat cave, and he put on the Batman suit. He legit became Batman for a day. That's insane that he got his wish. That far-fetched of a wish, somehow the Make-A-Wish Foundation made happen. And yet, why can't children who aren't dying of terminal illnesses get their wishes granted by this foundation? It's a complete mystery to me. Third of all, have you ever tried arguing with a kid who is dying of a terminal illness? You will never win that argument. A child dying of a terminal illness could say something like 9/11 in the long term was a good thing. And if you responded with something like, no, actually, the Iraq war had a devastating effect on our economy and on our geopolitical climate, and furthermore, you weren't even alive during 9/11, you don't know how devastating it was, a very reasonable response to something like that. Someone will respond to you and say, hey, that kid you're responding to is dying of a terminal illness. And somehow, we've gotten ingrained in our minds that this is a valid response to what you just said, and that you should therefore shut up. Basically, just because the person you're talking to belongs to this class of people, your arguments are all invalid. And to me, that just screams privilege. Clearly, children who are dying of terminal illnesses are very, very much privileged. Number 2, people with better than perfect eyesight. Did you know that this was a thing? Like, there's literally a class of superhumans out there who don't just have 20/20 eyesight. No. They have like 25/20 eyesight. What the hell is that? I don't know if you guys were aware, but I do wear glasses. I am a bit farsighted. I can't see from far away. I can live without them for a bit, but still, glasses are an integral part of my day-to-day life. If I don't have them while driving, for instance, I'm pretty screwed. And I always have the burden of having to carry around something to improve my eyesight. People with perfect vision don't have that piece of equipment to carry around. But people with better than perfect vision, that's just excessive. There's legitimately a class of superhumans roaming around the streets who can just see like ants from 4 miles away and name them on the spot. That is just ridiculous to me. And people who are born with that ability, like, how can they be anything but privileged? Let's be realistic here. This is like 100% naturalism. The circumstances of your birth have dictated, hey, you're just going to be able to see better than everyone. And that's just the reality of the situation. There's no, aptitude test to be able to gain this ability. You're just born with it. Privileged as hell. The number 1 most privileged people who enjoy pop music. Can you believe there's a genre of person out there who will listen to like a Taylor Swift album and not want to Van Gogh their own ears off? How can such a person exist? And it sucks not being one of those people. So no matter what, music that's popular, you're going to be hearing it a lot. No matter how much you try to avoid it, no matter how little you listen to your radio, pop music will come up. Imagine this inevitable event happens, and then you actually enjoy what you're hearing. That's just insane to me. You're just hooked up with a better lifetime if you like popular music. Meanwhile, I, who likes esoteric, foreign, progressive music, I'm miserable the whole time I'm listening to this garbage. It's not as if I can change it because, the hoops you have to jump through to change a station in a Walmart are kind of extraordinary. So you just have to deal with listening to music that you don't like. And honestly, that sucks. People who like pop music are also privileged in that they don't even understand the struggle of not liking it. Imagine if they woke up in a parallel universe where everyone listened to the kind of music I just mentioned, the esoteric, artsy, progressive rock. They would be miserable, right? But they don't even know that possibility. They don't understand the true breadth of what it's like not to enjoy the music they enjoy. They're in a position where they're doing way better than another class of people through no fault of their own, just by circumstance. You happen to be born liking pop music, and they can't even fathom a situation in which music they don't like might be playing in a public space. And it is extraordinarily clear to me that this bliss from ignorance is an example of the most type of privileged person out there. If you're the kind of person who maybe doesn't believe in privilege for some reason, but you happen to enjoy music that is a little bit out there, just think about liking pop music and you will understand privilege. That's how, textbook of an example this is. And I honestly don't know why people aren't more outraged at this example of privilege. People who like pop music, you are the most privileged people on earth. And I want you to know that, and I want you to sleep with that fact in your mind. Next time the radio comes on and it's something that you're enjoying, check your privilege. Not everyone is having as great of a time as you, and it's not their fault. Thank you guys for watching my terrible video about privilege. More is coming, so please stay tuned.